Hey guys, I'm Johnny FD, and the number one question I've been getting ever since I moved from Ukraine back here to Thailand is what gets you further, which place is cheaper, Thailand or Ukraine? Well, first off, it makes it really easy because these two notes, the 500 hryvnia, as you can see here, and the 500 Thai baht are worth almost exactly the same. In general, the hryvnia trades for about 36 to 37 to the dollar as of January 2024, while the Thai baht gets you about 34 to 35. So plus or minus a few percent, it makes it very easy to calculate. To answer the question, what place is cheaper to live in? That depends on a lot of categories. So today we're going to be going over the cost of living for housing, to buy or rent a place, cost of transportation, the cost of eating out, both at restaurants but also at supermarkets, and then miscellaneous things. Your utilities, your sports and leisure, gym memberships, childcare, clothing, a lot of stuff that a lot of people don't think about that just costs money. I'm going to be using a site called Numburo, which is like an expat kind of a site. Really, really good. But I'm going to tell you right now, not everything here is 100% accurate in a sense that there's going to be little nuances that you won't know unless you actually live here. So a couple things before we get started. I lived in Thailand in various cities for almost 10 years now. I've lived in Ukraine for about 3 or 4. And today I'm going to be comparing the cost between Bangkok and Kyiv, the two capital cities. Although I actually prefer living in cheaper cities sometimes, whether it's Chiang Mai or Jomtien, down the islands in Thailand, and places like Odessa or Kharkiv in Ukraine, all which are a little bit cheaper. But let's just compare apples to apples, the capital cities for now. So first thing people want to ask is food, restaurants. What is the prices? So you have the inexpensive kind of cheap food or fast food, the daily food. Maybe you just want to grab lunch. Maybe you're out, you go to school, you go to work. Here in Thailand, that probably means you're eating either street food or at a mall food court. And it can be really, really, really cheap. Literally as cheap as 35 baht, which is $1. So for a, let's say 15 or 20 pound note, you can eat for a week. In Ukraine, we don't really have a street food culture, but we have canteens, which are places like vs.Thailand that just have inexpensive meals. And if you go there and you get like a soup and a piece of bread, yeah, sure, you can eat for 40 or 50 hryvnia, but you can't really eat for less than that, and you can't really have a hearty meal. Here in Thailand, you can have rice with 2 or 3 dishes for that same price of 50 hryvnia or 50 baht, $1.50. So Bangkok or Thailand definitely wins for the cheap category. And according to Numburo, they say that an inexpensive restaurant can be 100 Thai baht, which is about $2.92, while in Ukraine it might be 300 baht, which is $7.87. So 170% difference, where Thailand is much cheaper. I don't know where these guys are eating for 300 baht or 300 hryvnia. That's a good meal. I can definitely eat for less than that, but it is pretty correct, because I would always spend around 200 or 300 hryvnia for a meal in Kyiv, while here I'm spending 100 max. Now, here's kind of the nuance, is if you want to go to a mid or nicer range restaurant, so somewhere that you want to sit down, not necessarily the most expensive, not somewhere that you go for like an anniversary or a birthday, but just like you go out with friends or family on a weekend, you just want some some nice place, some good service, good food. According to Numburo, it's gonna be 1,000 baht, which is 2 of these here in Bangkok, and 1,500 for 2 people in Kyiv. I would say that's actually pretty correct, but it depends on what you're eating. So one of the reasons why I left Thailand and I moved to Ukraine is because I realized I wasn't eating Thai food anymore. I was eating Western food like steaks, ribs, burgers, and I was drinking lots of craft beer, and I was drinking wine. All those things are way more expensive here in Thailand than they are in Ukraine. So if you want to eat things that contain cheese or any kind of dairy products, if you want beef, it's actually way cheaper just to do it in Ukraine. Also, in Ukraine, we have a kind of a nice tradition where we have something called a business lunch every Monday through Friday. At most restaurants, especially the nicer restaurants, you can get a 3-course set menu for a fixed price. And that price is anywhere between, I've seen as low as 150 hryvnia, which is about $5, all the way up to 500, which is like $15 or $20. You don't really have that tradition here in Thailand. I've never seen it. And that's a way that you can try some really nice 4- and 5-star restaurants for less than $20 a person. Now, one restaurant that's actually cheaper in Thailand than one restaurant that's actually cheaper in Ukraine than in Thailand is McDonald's. McDonald's is notoriously inexpensive in Ukraine. We have something called the Big Mac Index, which is an economic study showing how much a Big Mac costs in every country. And based on this, you can kind of calculate how much everyday items like bread, beef, cheese, and labor costs. So in a Big Mac, you have everything from a vegetable, you have wheat, you have the cost of running a business, and Ukraine has always been one of the cheapest places in the world. So if you like McDonald's, go to Ukraine. Now, this you'll be surprised because Thailand is known for people drinking beers on the beach or just everywhere. Thai people drink a lot of beer. But if you ever notice, it's always the same couple of brands. You have Chang, Singha, Leo, and then maybe like Tiger. All these are almost monopolies. They're, they have kind of like state distribution, we'll call it that way, where, you're not going to walk into a 7-Eleven or into a restaurant and find other brands of beer. These are your choices, and they all taste exactly the same. They're all lagers. They might vary by like that little tiny bit, but if you want to bring in any other beer or you want to be a craft beer maker, there's so many laws here that it makes it almost impossible to compete, which is why there's almost no craft beer in Thailand besides a few like certain places. I think the official rule is you can make and sell craft beer, but only in one location. You can't sell it anywhere else. So it makes it impossible for them to scale. So that being said, if you like beer, Ukraine is a million times better, and at least according to this, at least 50% cheaper. And if you are looking at craft beer, it would be half the price. And there's 10 times more selection in Ukraine. According to this, coffee and a cappuccino would be more expensive in Thailand, but this really depends on where you go. There's a ton of cool coffee shops and cafes in both cities now. Alright guys, here's my nice coffee and a warm water. I'm excited for this. Whoa. That's good ass coffee. Very bright beans, very bright notes, very fruity and floral. Aloy mak mak. Aloy mak mak. But they're probably comparing the cost of like a Starbucks or something, and Starbucks is really expensive here in Bangkok for whatever reason. But if you calculate kind of just locally owned hipster cafes, which are fantastic, I would say they're very similar in price. Maybe a cappuccino or milk-based, or lattes and things like that are a little bit cheaper in Ukraine, just because milk is cheaper, and milk is better. So if you like black coffee like I do, I think it's better in Thailand, especially like Americanos, because a lot of hipster cafes in Kyiv just refuse to serve it for whatever reason. But if you like lattes and cappuccinos, it's better in Ukraine. We have the best milk maybe in the world, and definitely the best lattes I've had. Speaking of milk, milk in Thailand is 42% more expensive than in Ukraine. Makes sense. I don't see that many cows here. Ukraine definitely has a lot of dairy products. Also, much cheaper and better in Ukraine is bread, especially if you like fresh baked bread of any variety besides like a baguette. You can get decent baguettes, white bread sometimes, but in general, you know, the bread in Europe is amazing. Germany and Ukraine both have great brown breads or seed breads. Lots of variety, super tasty, and super cheap. Like literally $1 you can get, you know, most loaves of bread. Guys, this is one of the things I missed so much about Ukraine. These bakery items. Oh my god. There's so much of it too. And these breads. Like the really nice dark brown breads as well. Look how big this bakery section is. And look how cheap this food is too. Like a loaf of bread. Oh, this is a small loaf, I guess, but this is like 25 cents. This is 50 cents. Like, great place. Thailand is going to be much more expensive and not as good. And on the flip side, rice is much cheaper here. According to this, rice is only a 4% difference. But the big difference between buying rice in Thailand and buying rice in Ukraine is in Ukraine, they sell it in 1 kilo bags for about 100 baht, which is like $3. In Thailand, they don't sell these small bags. They'll sell 5 kilos or 25 kilos. So you're always going to get more and get a better value. Right? Rice is so much cheaper in Thailand. As far as other kind of grocery items, there's a difference. Chicken and probably pork is cheaper here, but beef is cheaper in Ukraine, but not by enough. The only thing that is like a 50% difference is like cheese, apples, you know, potatoes. These are things that they grow in Ukraine. Ukraine is the bread basket of Europe. They grow a lot of wheat, potatoes, you know, some fruits, raise a lot of farm animals, and that's why it's so cheap there. Even actually, almost especially during the war when Russia was trying to blockade Ukraine from being able to export their food to sell to other countries, food became really cheap in Ukraine, while it became really expensive in other countries. You can thank Russia for that. Now, the one thing that is way cheaper and better in Ukraine than here is the wine. So that was another reason why I moved. I started getting into wine, and I realized it's really expensive and really terrible to buy wine here. My buddy Sam Marks, he spends $3,000 a month on wine. Don't ask me why. He just is a wine snob and he could afford it. And when we were in Thailand, he was spending that amount on a lot of, you know, it's all imported, and a lot of it would be rancid by the time he opened it because of the heat in Thailand. So through the importation, and that's when I convinced him, hey, stop drinking wine here, just move to Europe. So he moved to Barcelona. He loves the wine there. I moved to Ukraine. The wine there is very good, very cheap, and you have lots of variety. While in Thailand, it's expensive and not very good. We're talking about at least a 50% difference, but also a 100% difference in quality. So at least, you know, 4, 5, 6, 10 times better in Ukraine. So as for transportation, yeah, a lot of people driving little scooters around. That makes it really cheap. We can call a taxi. But at least according to Numbo, it's way cheaper to take public transport in Ukraine, but taxis are more expensive. So that's not really that absolutely correct, and here's why the context matters. So both Kyiv and Bangkok both have metro systems, you know, light rails, or you know, what do you want to call it. Yes, it is much cheaper in Ukraine. It's 10 hryvnia, which is 26 cents, while in Bangkok, it's $1.30, which is like 45 baht or something. So yeah, it depends also on the distance you go. The system is overall better in Ukraine. First off, I think the routes are a little bit better. Second, it's 10 baht regardless of how far you're going. And in Thailand, it depends on the distance, and there's just more people, more of a queue. It's not as easy of a process. As far as like public buses, they don't work very well in Thailand, but they actually surprisingly work pretty well in Ukraine. So I would say public transport, Ukraine wins, especially if you're in Kyiv or anywhere with the metro. As for taxis, this is actually a bit tricky because according to Nuremberg, it's cheaper for the first kilometer for a taxi in Thailand, but more expensive per kilometer. So here in Bangkok, it costs 35 baht, which is $1 to start, and then for every kilometer after, it's 40 baht, which is $1.17. While in Ukraine, it's $1.80 for them to come to you and start, but it's only 30 cents per kilometer after that. So in Ukraine, if you're just going to go 1 or 2 kilometers, it would be more expensive than in Bangkok. But if you wanted to go further, you wanted to go across the city, 30, 40 kilometers, go to the airport or something, then it's cheaper in Ukraine. It actually makes sense because in Ukraine, nobody takes a taxi to go 1 or 2 kilometers. They just walk. While in Bangkok, because it's so hot, it's very common to take a taxi a very short distance. And surprisingly, cars are way cheaper to buy in Ukraine than here in Thailand. Thailand is notorious for having expensive cars, which is strange because they have pretty cheap Ubers and taxis. But I guess labor's not expensive and gasoline's a little bit cheaper here as well. To put that in perspective, to buy a brand new Volkswagen Golf or equivalent, it's about $30,000 in Ukraine, because they do have some import tax, but it's not crazy high, 31,000. But here in Thailand, that car would be $55,000, so 43% more, crazy amount. But if you buy something that is locally produced in Thailand, which I think a Toyota Corolla is, or some of these equivalents, maybe like a Mazda or some of these cars that they build locally here, then it's not that difference. $26,000 you can buy a brand new car here, or $23,000 you can buy it in Ukraine. Now, when it comes to bills, electricity is almost the same, at least per kilowatt. But the difference is you're going to be spending way more electricity in Thailand during the summer running air conditioning, but you're going to be spending way more gas or electricity heating up your house in the winter in Ukraine. So that's kind of a wash. Internet and cell phone plans. I used to think Thailand was like the cheapest in the world when I lived here, but prices have gone up a lot in the last few years. There's been a lot more regulation. There's been a lot of squeeze where they try to charge tourists more for cell phone service, using like a tourist SIM card versus a normal one. And it's just been more complicated to get fast, good internet, especially on like a month-to-month scale. In Ukraine, much cheaper, much better. And they say it's 40% cheaper actually, 57 to 64% cheaper in Ukraine, and just as fast as well. In Thailand, you either get super fast speeds, I'm talking like 300 to 500 megabytes a second up and down, or you get some kind of weird like login thing where you get 10. There's almost nothing in between. So ironically, sometimes the fastest internet are at like random restaurants or cafes or small boutique hotels, and not the big ones. While in Ukraine, internet's fast everywhere. It's nice. It says movie tickets are cheaper in Ukraine than in Thailand. I beg to differ. I think maybe it's because on Wednesdays they have a deal where movie tickets are half off in Thailand, and I'm always going there. But in general, movies are way better in Thailand than they are Ukraine. In Ukraine, they don't play that many in English. Everything's dubbed in Ukrainian, and I hate it when it's dubbed. I don't care what language it is. I want to hear it in the original language. Put subtitles if you want. But yeah, when I'm in Thailand, I watch a movie every single week, almost. No matter what's playing, I'll go watch it, especially on Wednesdays when it's half off. In Thailand, it's such a treat to do it. In Ukraine, it's hard. Like, there's hardly any English movies. Maybe once every 2 months, you might have a movie playing in the original language, and then you kind of just have to go, So that's a disappointment living in Ukraine, to be honest. It used to be better in places like Kharkiv or Lviv before the war. There was slightly more because there was more international students, but not anymore. Fitness clubs. Bangkok supposedly is $60 a month on average, while in Ukraine it's $27. That depends so much on where you go. The most gyms in Kyiv are so overpriced. They're insane. If you go there and you say I want to sign up for a month, they might ask for $120 a month. And these are the gyms in the city center. Bangkok, I've heard, a lot of them want a year contract as well, which is annoying. But there's so many gyms in Thailand that will let you go on month to month or even on a day pass. I just went to the gym today for 60 baht, which is $2 on a day pass. You can't find that in Ukraine anymore. There used to be more of these kind of like Soviet-style gyms, but all those are gone now. Everything now is much nicer, at least in the big cities like in Kyiv. But luckily, there are a couple new gyms popping up. I go to a place called Apollo that will do month to month for about $30 a month. But those are kind of hard to find in Ukraine now, especially in Kyiv. Bangkok, I don't work out specifically in Bangkok, but in all the other cities, Chiang Mai, some of the, on the islands. Yeah, it's $30 to $60 a month, which is kind of crazy if you think about it. But every single apartment, every single nice condo in Thailand comes with a gym. So technically it's free, unless you wanted to go to a specific gym, a better gym. Preschool and international school supposedly is much cheaper in Bangkok. $627 a month for preschool, private, and international school is $13,000 per year. While in Ukraine, it's half that price. I don't have kids, but that's good to know. I do know that if you want to just hire help, it's very cheap in both countries. I think it'd probably be a little bit cheaper here to hire a full-time nanny or something than in Ukraine, but both places can be very cheap. But yeah, international stuff, that's pricey in both places. So clothing. This is actually interesting because clothing, official clothes in both countries are overpriced. If you want to buy something from Nike, both countries are expensive because in the US we always have sales. Here they don't have that many sales, but you can always go to outlets, you can buy knockoff brands, you can go to some places and just get it cheaper. But I will say this, my favorite sports store, Decathlon, is 40% cheaper in Thailand than in Ukraine. In Ukraine they have crazy import taxes. I don't know why. So it's expensive, but Decathlon is way cheaper everywhere else. Spain, France, even the UK, much cheaper than in Ukraine. So I try not to buy clothes when I'm in Ukraine because it's so expensive. So if I do buy something, I might just buy a knockoff pair or something. I'm not going to buy any brands. Now getting down to housing, guys. So officially, a one bedroom in the city center averages $750 a month in Bangkok, while $500 a month in Kyiv, making Kyiv cheaper. This depends a lot. It depends on what area you want to live in, how big the unit is, how new it is. For this price, for $500 a month in Kyiv, you're either going to be staying outside of the direct city center in a newer building somewhere, or if you want to be in the center, you're going to be living in a very old building. It's probably going to be decorated like your grandma Soviet style. It's not going to be a nice modern place. While in Bangkok, I guarantee you for this price, $750 a month, you're living in one of these high-rise towers that was built in the last few years. You're going to have a swimming pool, you're going to have a concierge, you're going to have a gym. You're not gonna have none of that in Ukraine. So it's very, very different. In fact, let's jump in here, and I'll show you comparison for what you can rent for about 500 bucks a month in both cities. So taking a look in Bangkok, if I was going to rent a place up to $600 a month, one bedroom, and I'd want it somewhere near a metro station. So let's say about 35 square meters is kind of the normal size. And here's what we can get. So this is as cheap as 300 bucks a month. Pretty basic. I wouldn't live here, but at least it's an option. And it looks like you can get a place that's even 57 square meters and a 2-bedroom for that price. That's pretty amazing. Or you can get a really nice 1-bedroom for that. A lot of Thai places, especially in Bangkok, look kind of just like a variation of this. And a lot of them have gyms and pools as well. So, yeah, 500 bucks, you can definitely get something in Bangkok, and right on Sukhumvit as well. So pretty good area actually. So you can see where this is, Sukhumvit. 35 square meters, furnished, 1-bedroom. Looks pretty good. All these going to be 1-year contracts, of course. And just to get an idea of how much it would cost to buy one of these. It looks like a smaller version of that. That might actually not be built yet. It's not. These are just renders. Let's take a look. All right, here we go. This is a good one. 38 square meters. It looks like it's next to Akamai, which is a good station. Right in the center of Bangkok. On Sukhumvit. This is nice. Looks like you have a swimming pool as well. And if you do the math, $120,000 divided by the square meters of 38.5, and you're looking around $3,100 per square meter furnished. All right, so unfortunately, all the websites in Kyiv suck for looking for properties, so I'm just using one of these agents. They typically have a decent selection anyways, but you can see this is kind of the city center of Kyiv. Put all areas. Let's see if we can even find anything for less than 600. So there's a couple units. Let's take a look. 40 square meters. This is by the train station. And this is a little bit further out. So you can get a nicer place, but you're not going to be right in the center. You can be on the highway. Oh, this is a terrible place to live. Let's take a look at this one. So location matters a lot in Ukraine, but really in the whole world. Location matters a lot, right? If it makes sense. So in general, you can either have something like this, maybe. This doesn't even look like it has a separate bedroom. It looks like it's just a living room. And you sleep on the couch, which is actually pretty common in Ukraine, just strange. Or you can have an older place that's bigger, like this. This isn't even Soviet style. This is actually renovated probably in the, maybe even the 2000s, to be honest. But it's not going to look as nice as the one in Thailand. And there's never going to be a pool or anything. This one's huge, but this is a house far from the center. The problem with most of these, they're nowhere near the actual city center. The sites completely suck for looking for. It's not as easy as looking in Thailand, but kind of just give me an idea. So we're going to zoom in the center of Kyiv. Kyiv's a very, very big city. And you definitely want to be near a metro. Unfortunately, all these sites suck. There's no way to search, any of those parameters. You could see this is the center. I live kind of near one of these. Prices are half in dollars, half of them are in hryvnia. It's confusing, but you can see even for like a crappy place like this, it's $1,500 a month, but it's big. This one's 55 square meters, $600 a month. This is something that we can afford. That's also about $500-600 a month. 64 square meters, 1,004. This one's only $300 a month. And this isn't the center, it's also in all, but it's not a bad district. I'm trying to find something that's actually within our budget, that's actually in the center, or at least near something decent. One of the reasons why I actually ended up just buying a place is because it was so annoying to find rentals. So this is actually a great little street, $600 a month, 55 square meters, a decent size, but it's going to be, kind of old and crappy. And the photos people take of real estate in Ukraine is terrible as well. I don't know why. The real estate market there has always been absolutely crap. Like, it's just really not a pleasant experience to rent from or buy. And if you want to buy a place like this, what's for $100K? That's actually a pretty good price. 56 square meters. It has a little rooftop. Actually, it's not that nice. I don't know why there's no photos of a kitchen. But let's assume this is legit. 140,000. Do you want to buy 56 square meters? 2,500. So actually a little bit less than the new place in Bangkok. But let's see if we can find like a newer, nicer place. $320,000. This is an old building and not renovated inside. If they don't show pictures inside, that means they haven't done anything inside. 1.3 million, 200 grand, 360,000. 1.7 million. This looks nice though. Looks like a little oligarch palace. Yeah, but you're definitely not going to find anything new in the city center, especially not anything that's remodeled for any kind of fair price. This is probably going to be the best we're going to do. 160,000, 60 square meters. Actually has a nice renovation. Let's calculate that. 2,666 per square meter. Not bad, actually. So I guess as far as rent is concerned, Kyiv, you could technically find a place that's cheaper. But actually, no, Bangkok, I feel like is actually the same price. Maybe per square meter, Kyiv is a better deal, but you can get something nicer and newer in Bangkok. And if you want to buy something, we clearly found deals that are way better than 5,600 a square meter. Bangkok maybe is a little tiny bit more, but you get something kind of brand new. Versus Kyiv, you're either getting a place that's completely not renovated yet and you have to put in all the furniture yourself, or it's going to be more expensive. Now, the last item on here is salaries. I mean, this doesn't really apply to us because most of us aren't going to be working a local job anyways, but just so you can have an idea of what the cost of labor is. Both countries are notoriously cheap, where salaries are very low. It says officially here in Bangkok, the capital of Thailand, it's about $600 a month, while in Kyiv it's $500. Let me double check that. $650 a month in Bangkok, $510 in Kyiv. But I'll tell you the difference is in Kyiv, the $510 is the official rate that they're being paid. But most jobs, all jobs, you're getting some cash bonus that isn't reported onto your official salary. And I don't care if you are a barista at a coffee shop or if you're a doctor, some of your money, big portion of your money comes in that, and it's unreported to the government because people hate paying taxes. So the way it works is a coffee shop, and I'm not just talking about tips here. I'm talking about you get a base salary of let's say $300 to $500 a month in hryvnia. All right, so it could be about 10,000 hryvnia a month, whatever it is, 10 to 15,000. And then you get 10% of the sales. And this is really common because the manager's not gonna be there. It might just be you, one person, or one other person. And as an incentive for you to work hard, to upsell customers, pastries and bakery items, to do a good job, you get a profit share. And I've seen this throughout Ukraine. And for even doctors, a lot of times the actual checkup or the surgery might be very low cost or almost free because their salaries are officially really low. It is common courtesy, almost expected, to give a little cash gift in hryvnia to your doctor, say thank you for fixing my broken arm or whatever it is, here you go. And that's how they make their money. So it's very unfair to show that the official salary is so low in Ukraine because very few people are actually working for that amount. So that being said, what do you guys think? Where would you rather live? Ukraine or Thailand? What are your spending habits? Because for me, when I'm chilling by the sun, swimming by the pool, going to the beach, eating local Thai food, I'm much happier in Thailand and it's much cheaper. And there are some things that you can get here that are just really expensive and just hard to get in Ukraine, like massages. Maybe you can get a massage for 500 to 1,000 hryvnia in Ukraine, like $20 an hour, which is still cheap compared to the US, $20-30 an hour, but you have to make an appointment, a day or two before. It's just kind of annoying. In Thailand, 200 baht, $8. You just walk straight in, never have to make an appointment. They're everywhere. So definitely some things are way easier and cheaper here in Thailand. But in Ukraine, you can have nice wine, nice cheese, a nice steak. You can have that Western style service. The cities are a lot more walkable, so you don't actually have to, take transport at all. There's so many benefits of being there as well. So it really depends on what you're into, what you like. Tell me in the comments if the price was the same, because a lot of things are. Where would you rather live? And this is assuming that Russia stops their invasion, and of course we can live in peace. For me, it was kind of half-half. My original plan before the war, and maybe still going forward, is I'm gonna live in each for half the year. I'll live in Kyiv for the summers, spring, summer, maybe fall, because I love it there. It's walkable, it's beautiful. And I'll spend the rest of the year, the entire winter, here in Thailand. Not necessarily Bangkok, but maybe one of the beaches near Bangkok, like Chom Tien, maybe in Chiang Mai, maybe one of the islands, because I also love it here. It's relaxing. You can go swimming every day. You can eat fresh fruit. You can do all the stuff, right? And I try to eat only local stuff. So when I'm here, I'm eating Thai food, and I'm eating mangoes, mangosteens, lychees, pineapple, papaya, and they're super, super cheap. Coconuts, all that stuff. But when I'm in Ukraine, I'm eating, blueberries, strawberries, raspberries, blackberries, apples, and eating all the local Ukrainian food there. So you can have the best of both. Let me know if you have any other questions in the comments below, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you're having a great 2024. Let me know what your travel plans are and where you'd rather live. See you guys.